So in this episode, I was unsure whether to name it perseverance or persistence. And I had to look up the definition of both of them. And it was ending up being perseverance that I think resonated the most, not only with myself, but a lot of the stories that I get from whether it's an athlete, entrepreneur, business owner, or a student, right? Perseverance is defined as persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. And I have seen a lot of this at the moment, and you will definitely see it where people are not going after their dreams because they are not seeing the success that they want. And we're not seeing that success happen as quickly as we would have liked. But perseverance is persisting in pursuit of that goal, even if you aren't seeing that success right away, or you know that success is potentially delayed. I felt that in my own personal journey, and I can get into some stories around that. But this episode will hopefully resonate with you, and I want to give some ideas around how you can stay persistent and persevere when you're going after a goal but not seeing that success straight away. A story that really hit me, and one that I found myself getting really emotional of, and whether you've seen it or not, I really encourage you to go and watch this story, was the story of Oscar Figueroa, a Colombian weightlifter who won gold medal at the Rio Olympics in 2016. But his story started all the way back in 2004 at Athens, where at Athens he placed fifth. 4 years later, when he went to Beijing trying to compete for podium position, hopefully a gold medal, he didn't finish. He couldn't lift due to what ended up being diagnosed as a spinal injury or a cervical spinal injury that meant that his hand, he couldn't pick the bar up, and he failed on all three lifts. He couldn't pick the bar up. He then persisted and persevered after his dream to then turn up at London, where he received a silver medal. He managed to get onto the podium and get a silver medal. At the start of 2016, he injured himself and was unlikely to be going to the Olympics. But through all of that journey, he persevered. He knew that he wanted to achieve this gold medal, and he worked tirelessly to get his body back in shape, and then eventually stood on the platform in Rio 2016 and lifted to win the gold medal. And when you see him lifting this bar in the 2016 Olympics, he breaks down after he's completed the lift. And it's an incredibly emotional story. I've covered it so quickly, but it's a story of how he didn't achieve his dream and success from the first attempt. He didn't get it at the second attempt. He didn't even get it at the third attempt. But at the fourth attempt was where he started to see that success. But that period of time, that is 20 years. That is 20 years of persevering, seeing people going and achieving what you wanted to achieve, thinking that you might not get there, doubting yourself that you may not even lift again through injuries, but persevering through it and eventually achieving that dream down the line. Now, there are plenty of stories like Oscar's where people have persevered and eventually achieved their dreams, but this one really stood out for me just because of the pure emotion of when he's lifting at the end there. And there are loads of stories in there, even in my own personal story. And if you haven't heard it, then I encourage you to listen to the episode of my story back in the earlier podcasts on Raising Your Game. I'll leave a link in the show notes for that. But a lot of people have asked me, how did I persevere and how did I come up against trials and tribulations and still find the energy to actually keep going? And what I was wrapping my brain around was the idea of persevering is usually linked with mental toughness or resilience. And I've spoken about previously how mental toughness and resilience, I believe, are different. I believe that mental toughness is your mental strength in the moment. And then your resilience is your mental strength after the moment. So your ability to bounce back. And when you're persevering, you do need both. You need the ability to persevere in the moment and be mentally tough in the moment when something is challenging. But then when you undoubtedly finish it, perhaps even fail, which you are going to feel when you are trying hard to achieve something, when you feel that level of failure, having resilience to bounce back and go again is really important. And that's what starts to create this this personality trait of being someone who perseveres and just continuously goes, being mentally tough in the moment to give it a go and give it a good crack. And then if you fail, and when you do, you dust yourself off and you get back up and you go again. So how do you persevere? How do you build perseverance in yourself? I think one of the things that gets in the way of perseverance is our self-doubt. If we fail and we don't achieve something, then I start to doubt myself, and that can really get in the way. On one of my recent live masterclasses, mindset masterclasses in the Mindstrong community around self-doubt, I spoke about how that lack of that high self-doubt that you can have is just a hit on your self-esteem. I don't feel I can achieve something. I don't know if I can achieve this because maybe I haven't seen an achievement before. We feel we can persevere when we start to see results, or perhaps when we know what is motivating us. Finding your motivation to persevere. Why are you really going after this thing? Is it because you want to gain a trophy or reward and have an extrinsic motivation, which isn't necessarily guaranteed, right? There's no guarantee that you're going to get this trophy, this reward. So can you have an intrinsic motivation alongside it, and more than one, so that you're just doing it because you love it? Maybe it's defining the person that you are, and that could be good enough. Being someone who is seen as persevering, that could be something that intrinsically motivates you and allows you to strive after your goals, your dreams, whatever you're trying to achieve. And then hopefully the outcome gets there, but it's not guaranteed. But if you are persistent, or you're trying to persevere in pursuit of the type of person you want to become, that's good enough. So building that character and then achieving something. So having something that you've achieved, whether it's looking back on a past achievement and going, okay, I have some form of success, and that will help reduce your self-doubt. Okay, I've done it before, I can do it again. But if you haven't had something that you've achieved, then create a space or create an opportunity for you to actually achieve something, to do that. So that will require you to perhaps not even set the bar that high. If you set the bar too high, so that if you do try to achieve something and you don't achieve it, that's going to hit your self-esteem. That's going to increase your self-doubt, because I don't feel like I've achieved this. I don't know if I can do it. So just simply having a small goal that you can achieve and then build upon. So what is the first little goal that I can do and achieve? I love using exercise as a way of building perseverance. So if it's you're going out for a run, right, and you get to the end of your run and it's really tough and it's really challenging, throw an extra 30 seconds onto it, maybe an extra minute, right, and persevere through that really tough period. One of my favorite phrases growing up that used to ring in my mind was Muhammad Ali, who used to say, I don't start counting the reps until they start becoming difficult, or I start to feel the burn. I'm going to butcher that quote, but it's something along those lines. And the idea is that if you want to build perseverance, when things are really tough, that's when you really want to turn it on. That's when you want to start thinking about it. So perhaps there's something that you're doing where you can add one more rep. You can just do one more minute, something that's going to allow you to persevere through that little moment of difficulty. And we're not talking about adding 5, 10, 15 minutes and 100 reps on, because if you try to do that and you don't achieve it, then you're going to have failed, and that's going to knock your self-esteem. But if you just get that first stat, you just get that first achievement in and done, then you can start to build upon it. You can maybe do it again. And the consistency of being able to do that over time will build up your ability to start to be persistent, be able to persevere and continuously go after it. And just being aware that a part of perseverance is failure. Failure is a huge part of being someone who perseveres. So it's how you deal with your failure. And this moves on to my next point, or next big point in this. And that is, there's a Stoic philosophy of the premeditation of evils. And that is essentially creating a visualization in your mind of if the worst outcome happens. So when we self-doubt ourselves, it's because we are usually thinking about this worst outcome. But that's okay. Why not think about it? Why not think about what if the worst outcome was to happen, and then build a plan around that? I've often spoken about negative visualization. I used to visualize a negative outcome happening in my sport and then plan for when that moment would happen. How am I going to deal with it? What sort of person do I want to be seen as dealing with that moment? What actions can I do that will hopefully allow that experience to be better and maybe even not actually have that negative outcome. So you can start to think about your own negative outcome. What's the worst case scenario that I'm going to have? And then how would I deal with it if I have it? An example I've used and one that really resonated with me was in my journey to making it as a professional athlete, I used to call up the coaches that were way, way above me, the professional coaches. And I used to try and get into their training days. And I just would really gamble and call them up and ask if I could come and train with them the next day. And they would say no. And they kept saying no, no, no. But my story of perseverance was the fact that I would call them back again. I would keep going and persevere with that phone call. But what I actually did as a bit of a strategy was I built a plan out of what happens when they say no. Okay, so if they say no, am I going to say something different next time? Yes, I'll try a different approach. If they say no, I'm going to just try again, just simply try again, like writing down that as a plan. I'm going to try again. Gave me the confidence that, okay, I'm going to dust myself off. I've already planned for this going south and I'm going to give it another crack. And just that premeditation of this bad outcome being something that allowed me to just accept that negative outcome could happen and even start to deal with the self-doubts. I'd put on the flip side of that, starting to energize yourself with the idea of, well, what would happen if everything turned out better than it could ever turn out? And if you're someone who perhaps wants to persevere in the pursuit of something great happening, then recognizing that, okay, what is the best outcome that could possibly happen? What is the really exciting opportunities that are going to come? And I want to persevere in pursuit of those. So if perhaps the negative experiences that you could possibly feel aren't really the things that are going to motivate you, go towards what could happen if everything turns out better than I could have ever imagined. And that's something that will allow you to continue to persevere, and you can start to build a plan around that as well. So how am I going to make these opportunities a reality? How am I going to continuously try again so that I can get towards my dream? Something I've recently started doing is longboarding, and I have been quite persistent. I've persevered with it, even though I didn't feel like I was getting any success with it. I'm also starting the guitar, and they're just two things that I wanted to do in my life, and I've had to strap on a beginner's mindset for this and really accept that I'm going to suck for a little while. But I didn't feel like I was making much progress. And then on the weekend, I jumped on my board and I just suddenly started going on it, and something clicked out of nowhere. And then I saw this progress. And that's now really given me more motivation and inspiration to continuously persevere with it. With my guitar, I didn't feel like I was getting the hang of some songs. And then one day I just picked it up and suddenly something clicked. When I was on my journey to being a professional athlete, from the ages of 14 to 19, 20, I didn't really have a ton of success. I had some moments where I was successful, but then I turned pro in the matter of 6 months. I went from potentially walking away from the sport to then 6 months later achieving my goal. And I think if I'd stopped at that start of that 6 month period, I would never have achieved it. Obviously, I've just walked away, but I persevered. I kept going back, even though the results weren't going my way. I saw some level of achievement and put down these little micro goals and micro goals around it, and started to tick them off bit by bit. And then eventually it all just happened at once. And if you persevere, eventually your goals can come out of nowhere. What that progress that you're hoping to find comes out of nowhere. And any story of perseverance that you will see will be this moment where they've achieved it, and it's all built up to that moment. But it's the years where they've had to persevere behind it that have been hard work, and getting through that. And it's not pretty. I can't wrap anything around it by saying it's a fun place to be. It's not pretty, but if you can start to build this character of what you want to be, recognize, okay, what's going to happen when I face some form of trial and tribulation and a setback? What do I want to, what's the type of person I want to be in that moment? That's going to help you dealing with those moments. It's going to help you deal with all of that time where you want to persevere. So hopefully there might be something there that will help you start to think about, how am I going to build this perseverance in my life? It is a bit of an art form. It is a skill set to persevere, but it's not impossible. We're all persevering towards something. There's a goal that we have, and I was saying to someone the other day, if you want to become, whether it's a professional athlete or great in your own expertise, it is the people that hold on the longest that find their way to success. They're not necessarily always the most talented or the most skillful, but they've persevered for long enough and stayed in it long enough that they're the ones that are there at the end. They have this inner belief that you can do it, you can get there, and they're willing to take on some of the knocks, the hits, in order to get to that place. So hopefully this has inspired you, given you some motivation, maybe an idea, and maybe just even given you something to confirm what you maybe already knew. You knew that you were needing to be this type of person in order to persevere and get towards your dreams. And I think the whole idea that you're going to have to delay success for a little bit to get what you want, that's true in many areas of life. So just hang in there, keep going. Whatever it is you're persevering towards, just hold on. Know that failure isn't the end, and just keep going towards whatever it is that you want to achieve. I genuinely believe in you. So thank you again for listening. As always, be sure to subscribe, follow to this channel, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy.